me, this rather extraordinary conference, for their formal welcome and for the conference code of conduct, which is right on the button, especially as this talk is in a way about being constructive, respectful, helpful and kind to us old people. Here's my topic: old people and their computers, stereotypes, statistics and sudden change, and of course how you can help at this extraordinary moment in time. Who am I? Well, I'm primarily a writer, and these days that includes being a podcaster and a blogger and I don't know, all sorts of other things. And I'm 80. Obviously, I've got a vested interest in old people and in my own computer. That's me, that's my website, Right Into Life. That's my cat Ursula sitting on some of my books. That's my podcast, How to Be Old. Let's start with some typical cliches about old age. Is this what you think really deep down? Most of us utter things like this to make ourselves better, to cheer someone else up, or to keep the idea of old age at bay. Don't want to think about that, right? Well, okay, age is a number, but it's a biological reality as well. Yes, attitude has a huge influence on the way we age, but it doesn't stop the aging process. Only death does that. As for 80 years young and young at heart, do you notice how those expressions take it for granted that old is a dirty word? Old age is a horrible thing that nobody wants a bar of. Well, once you get to be old, you realize just how weird this is, because on the whole, we old people would much rather be old than the alternative, which is dead. And we quite enjoy being old. It's well known now that your 70s, for example, are among the happiest times for many people. Seriously, why do you think ageism is rampant? And I'm not just talking about in the West. Look, I was the worst culprit myself. I was 75 when I realized that I was anti-old age. I was as ageist as anybody. Well, this is one reason I think can remember what we were like 10 years ago, because we have memories, we were there. But we literally can't imagine what it would be like to be us in 10 years' time. What will we think? What will we feel? What will our values be? Try it. It's not easy. What about the magical thinking that carries on around old age? This is a kind of crazy thinking that's very common, and I had it, I think. The thing is that most of our stereotypes of old people are out of date. Things have changed. We're not like our grandparents were. Because we, meaning middle-class, educated people in the developed world, we're living longer, much, much longer, as you know. Now, that means that a large proportion of people my age are like me, active, fully functioning, healthy human beings, right? I am not an anomaly. I am one of the new models. So, now the word old could cover a third of your lifespan, from 65 to 95. Yet the same person changes so much between 65 and 95. That's 30 years. So let's move on to the cliches that you know so well about computer confidence. I'm so sick of hearing these cliches. I'm a digital dinosaur. I'm a modern Luddite. I'm hopeless with computers. They started when computers and then the internet became common office tools. Look, that's so long ago, mid-80s, mid-90s. But I tell you something, since the pandemic began, those old cliches started to sound a bit thin. People weren't quite so sure when they said it. What's really going on? I'm hopeless with computers, someone says. But then I see her, loving her Sudoku, her Skyping, her shopping, her Zooming, playing Lectureless with her friends, getting the news, getting recipes, doing a bit of Facebook, emailing. She's got a Kindle too, I might add. But she still speaks about herself as hopeless with computers. It's not a hopeless person, of course. This is somebody with historic anxiety about nuisances and delays and not getting things right the first time. Statistics don't stand still. So whatever you think you know about old people using the internet is probably out of date. There's been a heap of research and policy making around digital inclusion in New Zealand lately, so those figures are pretty up to date. But notice a shocking drop in internet access in people over 75. There's a cutoff point at 74 for a reason. But that's changing year by year. Digital inclusion will be achieved when all of us have what we need to participate in, contribute to, and benefit from the digital world. That's a nice definition, I think. And what we need is motivation, access, skills, and trust. So digital inclusion used to be like being online. That's only the start now. Now here's why those figures are changing year by year. I'm 80. I was born in 1940. I got my first computer in 1986. Got my own website in 1996, so I've been using the internet constantly for 24 years. And I'm not alone. In knowledge work, people aged 85 this year may never have needed a computer or the internet at work. People aged 75 this year, right now, may have used the internet at work for 10 years. So that's a kind of cut-off point. People aged 60 this year may have used it for 20 years. And then, boom, along came the pandemic. Suddenly, we old people are open to new technology as never before. You'll have seen headlines about this. Let me tell you a few stories which epitomize what's happening all over the world. Let me introduce my friend Austin. She's 74 and she's been saying this for 20 years. I'm a digital dinosaur. Drove me mad, by the way. Maybe she thought it was true, despite the fact that she's a brilliant and highly creative woman. Suddenly, she's leapt into learning since the pandemic. Number one, when the government announced that we were going into level 4 shutdown, Austin rushed into her bank and got someone to show her how to do online banking. She was amazed how easy it was. By the way, up till then, she had always used cash and cheques when we were allowed to. Number two, she belongs to Toastmasters, and in week 2, she delivered a speech on Zoom to the club. She has never done anything remotely like that before. Number 3, she posted on Facebook for the first time in years. And number 4, now she's asking me how to make a podcast. She's never even listened to a podcast, but I am certainly putting that to right. So that's Austin. Now Renee, another friend of mine, she is a much-loved 90-year-old New Zealand writer. When she was invited to participate in an online discussion on Zoom, she was determined to learn how to do it. Now, it's a lot harder for her. She's got severe arthritis and severe loss of vision through macular degeneration. But she did it. Mind you, she's always had that can-do, just try and stop me attitude, but still, it was a mighty thing that happened. Wouldn't have happened without the lockdown, because she still goes to conferences and gives talks. Then there are all the stories of retirement villages, and let's mention U3A in Victoria. This screenshot shows people in my sister's retirement village in Waikanae, New Zealand. Parkwood. Within a few days of lockdown, up to 55 members were able to join a Zoom meeting, which they now have regularly, and I bet something similar is happening near you. U3A in Victoria is another model of quick change, with half their students switching to online classes as soon as they went online. And I like this story about a 94-year-old who talked his 93-year-old mate into buying his old iPad off him. He bought a new one, and he's taught his mate to push that button so he can talk to him every morning. When the need is there, we can learn as quick as anybody. Right, now I want to mention this survey of mine. I did an interesting survey of older bloggers in 2018. Had 123 respondents. They were self-selected. They were bloggers and they agreed to call themselves old. And there was lots of space for comments, so I found out a tremendous lot. I should mention that personal blogs in a WordPress environment particularly are way calmer and slower and easier to manage than social media like Facebook and Twitter. I don't know whether blogs are social media technically. They are so comfortable. Now, the older bloggers had plenty of complaints, don't worry about that, especially about accessibility and privacy, things that you could help with, maybe. But this is what blew me away. What they said about the emotional benefits of blogging. Look at it. I'm not alone, 56% of them. It gave me a sense of purpose, 67%. That's sort of staggering. Increased my confidence, and it makes me happy, 80%. What an extraordinary number. Hard to believe. Think how crucial these effects must be in the time of this pandemic. I'm just mentioning personal blogs as one way that old people can and do participate and contribute to the world online. It's one activity that might appeal to more people if we carry on leading these somewhat constrained lives because of the global pandemic. Now, these results surprised me too, even though I wrote the questions after all. 70% say it gives me contact with the outside world. Really? That's huge. And we surely need that right now. Again and again, in all sorts of questions, the older bloggers talked about the social side of blogging. And that's something that most of them hadn't expected. They blogged to express themselves or to share ideas, but they found out they were meeting people left, right, and centre, and there was a whole social world there, and they were learning things. Gives me a schedule. 17%. In lockdown, a schedule is a big deal. I read something an ex-prisoner said, that it was the one thing that kept him sane in solitary confinement. The old bloggers were very definite about the mental benefits. They said all sorts of things like, gives me a way to organise my research and information and opinions. It does improve my analytical skills and my writing. Challenges me to learn new things. CSS, WordPress, photography. Okay, back to you. You're not that young and you're not that old. These are the same people. This is me and my sisters actually. You can make a big difference with very small gestures right now, helping someone old with a technology problem. Okay, we are slow, so it's a known fact. We can't help it. Speaking for myself, it's my short-term memory that lets me down. You just tell me something and I've already forgotten. But tell me again and I'll get it. And of course, I can't remember a particular word now and then, but that's just a little joke. It doesn't matter. Here's something you may not know. In the older brain, some insights come in a flash. Sometimes I'm amazed at how fast I can analyze or synthesize certain information. It's a different set of mental skills, but they're very real. Those decades of experience and knowledge are in the bank. You might be involved in solving a problem for a lot of people, like working on some accessibility issue, but that's splendid work. But also important is that you could teach one old person one thing that they want to learn. There's a special way we need to be taught. Teach one thing in small steps. Show us, don't tell us. Just point to things. Teach slowly, that's the main thing. Allow heaps of time. Accept our slowness and notice our brilliance. Now, again, you know all this, but you may not be aware of what a huge gift you're giving to an old person in the pandemic when you help with their technology. We do feel a bit shaky, you know. One day we were capable, active, sociable, independent people who were helping other people. Then came lockdown, and overnight we became vulnerable, isolated, dependent, not even sure who we are anymore. So, by helping an old person with their computer, you might be giving that person more independence, more self-respect, some mental stimulation, a bit of fun, a new social life through the skill they're getting, a schedule perhaps, and contact with the outside world above all. All of these things follow from a little bit more technical competence, and all of these things are very precious in the shaky reality of old people in a pandemic. And remember, we are the future you. Thank you very much for listening. Now, what are you thinking, I wonder? I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.